Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We're just talking with Zev. I just was on a podcast before this with a comedian, Pete Dominic. He was on CNN for a long time. He's got a podcast called Stand Up, and we were talking
Oh,
about
I
a
know
lot of
him.
the
I
things.
know him. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Just a great guy. Super
Yeah.
fun. Really offside at times, which I enjoy. It kind of tickles my offside funny bone. Sometimes I get a chance to do a show with Pete. And really excited to talk about some of the stories that we covered today. Obviously, some of the ice stuff, which is kind of gearing up, which is, the videos that we're seeing are incredible. And some of the stories that are coming out, including the one we'll cover today, is interesting. We've got Operation Spiderweb. Operation Spiderweb, of course, Ukraine just giving it to the Russian aviation industry, taking out like a quarter of all their shit, maybe a third. And
that was just amazing. Just amazing. I can't wait to talk about it, but it's amazing.
I know.
And good for
It's
them.
just one of the most heartfelt, loving destruction of a war machine stories you'll ever hear. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk about how Canada's leading the free world, Ukraine, and the UK making a massive announcement today. So yeah, we're going to cover it all today. Again, I feel like I warmed up with Pete, and I'm just going to give you my best now. I feel like I got all the cobwebs out on someone else's podcast just to bring you our best today on our podcast. That five stack.
That is the best. The 5-stack with the five top stories of the day here on Substack. We begin at number 5 with ICE detaining a Massachusetts high school student on his way to volleyball. So 18-year-old Marcelo Gomes, he's a Milford High School junior and an honor student, was detained by ICE agents on Saturday morning while traveling to volleyball practice. Gomes, who immigrated from Brazil at the age of 5, was supposed to play in the school band on Sunday's at Sunday's graduation ceremony. Instead, he's being held with chains around his ankles in a cell with 30 other men. I mean, ICE is I know they're trying to make us angry, but boy, are they making us angry. This is really unbelievable. This is an 18-year-old, really great kid at a really good school, going to volleyball, and then, he was going to play the school band the next day. And him and his 17-year-old friend were arrested. The 17-year-old doesn't get actually detained because he was 17, underage, but he gets thrown into jail. And there's no indication yet of what his condition is, other than he's got these chains around his ankles. No one really understands how this happened. How due process is going to be completely ignored, as it has been throughout all these ICE raids. It's just an abomination. There's nothing good about it.
No, you're living America's living through, you watch some of the videos from like 1934, 35, all the way to 45, when obviously Hitler took over, and you saw you guys in brown shirts, maybe SS coats, running around, beating the shit out of people, taking them out of their houses, whether they be Jewish, whether they be Bolsheviks, whether they be, newspaper owners, whether they be from different countries, whether they would have maybe a handicapped child. They would just pull these people out of their homes, get rid of their kids and the undesirables. And that is exactly what you're seeing today in the United States of America. It is no different. Mm-hmm. It is FSB-like. It is CCP-like. It is Fourth Reich-like. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. And it's had this chilling effect. And I was just talking to Pete as we were talking about Pete Dominic, comedian, podcaster, all-around good dude. And we're talking about the chilling effect it's having on everyday Americans, not just Americans who might be in the country from another country, whose parents might have been, given birth to dreamers, who's, they've got birthright citizenship, even though they may have come into the country illegally at one point. Pete is an Italian American, right? Of Italian American descent, 3 generations here. And he's driving his daughter to brunch, and he sees 20 cop cars, a whole bunch of, masked cop cars, or ghost cars, as they say, as he's driving his daughter to brunch. And he was like, are they here for us? Like, this is an Italian American. Mm. This is a guy who has watched so many ICE raid videos, has watched his neighbors get picked up, has his family is fucking petrified that they're going to turn that machine onto them, because that's what's coming next. It's not that lack of habeas corpus, basic civil rights for all of these people that are being sent to detention centers, like this 18-year-old honors student who is here legally, who is an American citizen, who was with his 17-year-old friend, who, by the way, had a part-time job, not just an honor student, played on the volleyball team. He was in the school band,
Mm,
very popular young man in his school as well. He got picked up and is being detained for existing, being detained because his family is Brazilian, and
mm,
maybe there was an issue with one of their visas at one point. And so these are excuses. This isn't about, and stop for fuck's sakes, everybody in the United States. It's like, yeah, this is about immigration. This was never about immigration.
no.
Immigration was the keyhole to them satisfying their need and the Trump regime to warm you up to the idea that in protecting Americans' interests, they need to be allowed to destroy basic human rights and go after anybody that they tell you is an enemy of the state. So guys like Pete are righteously shitting their pants,
Mhm,
even though he is, third generation Italian American, thinking, I speak up all the time against the Trump regime. Could I be next? And the answer is yes.
mhm.
The answer is yes. If what you're seeing today is any indication, if you're sitting in your home in the United States of America and you have tweeted something about Donald Trump, they're not just looking for you online. They don't just have Palantir and Elon Musk's Doge and all that data surveillance scouring for people saying shitty things about Netanyahu or about murdering an official. This is about finding and rooting out any dissension whatsoever to the Trump regime in any capacity. And that, my friends, is what is coming next.
100%. And what you're pointing out to is the fear of immigration is what the Trump regime sold everybody. They
Mhm.
said that there was some sort of threat because of immigration. There wasn't, of course, a threat. The only thing that's threatened by immigration, if you take it away, is the American economy, because these people power the American economy in so many ways. But they sold this fear into white America, that they somehow were threatened, that they were somehow going to collapse, that they were somehow endangered, even though there's no evidence to suggest that at all. But they bought that fear. White Americans bought that fear. And now they've sailed down this road where they've got high school students in a very nice town, going to band practice, being arrested by ICE agents and thrown into some sort of detention center. And the thing that's bizarre about all of this is it's not only just that they're arresting people that have no reason to be arrested, they appear to be filling some sort of quota. That there's a prison system that they've built, and that prison system needs to be filled up with as many people as they can. Even if they can't find the right people to fill it up, they just have to arrest people just to make sure that, the spaces are taken. And this
Mm.
is America. This is now America in 2025, the land of freedom and opportunity and free expression is now the land of we're just going to throw you in jail to fill a quota because you look suspicious.
Mhm. Yeah, government grants for that kind of stuff too. You
Yeah.
know that the Trump admin signed a whole bunch of agreements with the guys at BlackRock. I can't remember the guy's name. What's his name again? Eric Prince, to
Oh, yeah,
build
of course.
these to take these old prisons, turn them into concentration camps, work camps. That's actively going on right now, and those grants exist for these institutions. And to fill those institutions, to get those grants, you have to get as many people in prison as humanly fucking possible. So that's also part of it. Yeah, well, but dude, it is an authoritarian state. The United States is no longer a democracy. We've talked about that numerous times. It's an autocracy.
Mm,
It is a democracy that is now been overrun and captured by oligarchs, and it has been captured by dictators. It has been captured by the Trump regime, who is chock a block full of fucking morons like Kristi Noem and Marco Rubio, who have traded every fucking human value that they could possibly have just to be close to the ring, just to be close to the throne, just
mhm.
to be somebody. And so, don't mistake how evil this is with greed. Don't mistake how fucking inhumane this is with power and influence, because that's what this is really all about, right?
I mean, this guy is just a good kid, right? He's not a criminal. They said they were going to be deporting criminals. These are not
Mm.
criminals. These is just a kid at school. He goes to same. If you've got a kid at school, it's the same kind. He's the same person, basically.
Kilmar Abrego
Yeah, yeah,
Garcia, no
yeah.
criminal record.
Yeah. Why are they taking people who've done nothing wrong at all, with no even traceable record of them doing anything wrong or affiliation with anyone involved in criminality, and then throwing them into this process that is terrifying. Can you imagine being an 18-year-old kid in a cell with 30 other people with chains around your ankles, and you were on your way to band practice or volleyball practice, and suddenly you're in a prison, jailed with these men? I mean, it would just be horrifying. Can't reach your lawyers, can't reach your parents, don't know what the hell's going on. You could be deported to Sudan or Libya or Salvador, or wherever they decide to send today's, prisoners to. It is beyond the comprehension of anything moral or humane or anything that we are doing this to Americans. It's
Yeah.
just beyond it.
Yeah, human beings. I mean,
Yeah.
whether they be American or not, these are human beings, and the American way is due process, and was progressivism. It was managed by those values of basic human rights, and those don't exist in the United States of America anymore. And I know we're going to talk about it. Maybe this could be the number 4 story.
Yeah.
Other countries are taking notice.
Mhm.
Not only has Canada issued a travel advisory to the United States for all Canadians to be very wary, to not take your personal phone, go get a burner phone. Maybe close your social media accounts or lock them. Don't do biometric access to your phone. Make sure it's a code. But now several other countries have jumped on board, and a really notable travel advisory warning yesterday from Germany. And,
Mhm.
and when Germany says, hey, America's too dangerous, you should probably take note. I mean, this is a pretty hard country. And Germany put out a note yesterday that said not only are they advising Germans to not travel to the United States, if they do, here are a very serious set of rules you should govern yourself by when going into the country.
Mm.
And they've told people, if you're going to go to the States and you have to do it, just know that you might not get in, no matter if your travel documents are in order. Then they also added this little caveat: come home. If you're German, you need to leave the United States and
Mhm.
come back to Germany for a multitude of reasons. But the most important one is they are telling German citizens they are no longer safe in the United States of America because of a kaleidoscope of issues:
Mm.
anti-DEI, anti-LGBTQ, gun-related violence, crime, which is just like rampant in the United States, is something that we're not talking about.
Mm.
The amount of crime, the uptick in crime, even though that is a fear-based society and an authoritarian society now, you're seeing the birth of even more incredible violence in the United States. And so, this is really, really important for a lot of Americans to know that the rest of the world is telling their citizens not just to not go to the United States, but if you're in the United States, to get the fuck out of the United
Mhm.
States right now.
Mhm. America's becoming a pariah state, and you've got a great article on your Substack about this at deanblundell.substack.com about the international travel warnings against traveling to the United States. And as you point out, Germany does absolutely zero in on LGBTQ travelers, which is not what people have been talking a lot about. But frankly, this administration is very, very terrifying to the community, and especially their trans rollbacks, which have been draconian to say the least. But this is now affecting the entire LGBTQ community, and so you've got absolutely people who are coming into the country with maybe their passports are X gender, or they're gender neutral. Those people might be detained as well or sent back. There's just a lot of issues around this very community that has been under threat so long, and yet in America has for many years been able to find some sort of liberation through the Defense of Marriage Act and those kinds of things. And so to have America now turn against this community as well, and Germany's absolutely right to be telling travelers of that community not to travel to the United States.
Yeah, the German embassy recommended all German citizens currently in the United States return home, get this, as quickly as possible.
Mm.
And if you are in the LGBTQ, pardon me, there's so many letters in there
Too
now,
many. Too many.
community. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. If you're in the gay community in any
Thank you.
capacity, the trans community in any capacity, they're saying, hey, listen, this is especially dangerous for you. And that is America. I mean, and it's indicative of what we know America to be today. I mean, the mask is off. This is not a democracy anymore. This is an authoritarian state. Donald Trump and the Trump regime are engineering an authoritarian state at lightning fast speed, and they are doing so causing a constitutional crisis, ignoring Supreme Court rulings, ignoring circuit court rulings, appealing for stays of execution when it comes to tariffs. They will run out the fucking clock and hurt as many people as humanly possible. The butterfly effect of that is apparently, as I understand it, about $2 trillion has left the United States because people are not going to the United States.
Yeah.
And that's not something you're going to see on America's books for the next 2 to 3 months, 90 days. But when that report comes out of the death of American tourism, because listen, it's not just, gay men and women, trans men and women who shouldn't go to the United States. Nobody. If you're from a NATO country, if
Yeah,
you're
can't go.
from a country that's pushing back against Donald Trump and the Trump regime, like Canada, do not go to the United States of America, because those are not the same rules that govern entry into Canada. Those are very different fucking CPB agents. They love Donald Trump. They're there to do maximum damage. Law enforcement loves to mix it up. Border guards in the United States are not like they are here in Canada, where you get due process when you get here. You go to the United States as a Canadian, your paperwork's out of order. They don't even need to give you an excuse. They can put you, if you go through Detroit, Clark County Prison, maximum security prison for up to 72 hours if you're Canadian. And now, because of the national emergency that Donald Trump has engineered, they can keep you there for an indefinite period of time. And then they can send you to Arizona. And then they can send you to CCOT. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not go to the United States of America. Unless, of course, you're Chinese or Russian. Then you'll be able to get in, no problem.
I'm just gonna take us on a little bit of a side tangent here. Now, 15 years ago, I went to that Lady Gaga march in DC, which was campaigning for equality, for gay equality. It was before the Supreme Court had issued that ruling, that landmark ruling that said that gay men and gay women could marry each other, could form partnerships together. It was a huge ruling. Obviously, the Supreme Court changed the trajectory of LGBT community forever from that point. And, to imagine that moment, which was such a joyous moment. I mean, there were thousands of people on the mall, and Lady Gaga did this incredible, incredible speech. It was really, it was at the height of her career too. It was this transformative moment where, it felt like finally gay people could be liberated in the United States after all those years of oppression, when you think about Stonewall all the way through to where we are today. And to have us, just a few years, 15 years later, to see them like pushing gay people back into the closet, taking away people's rights, creating a registry of trans people, tracking gays and lesbians. I mean, what has happened to America that we have now become a country, sorry, excuse me, that tracks our weakest, our most disadvantaged people and targets them and targets them for discrimination. From that beautiful moment 15 years ago to today, it's almost like watching a nightmare. It really is, for anyone who's ever been a proponent of these rights. And of course, it's such an engine that drives so much innovation and creativity, and it drives the economy to a large extent as well. I mean, gay people have become very influential in the last few decades in every factor of life. And it's such a powerful thing to have that diversity in a community. And now to see them just targeting these people left, right, and center is just an abomination. Not to mention the Venezuelan who's sitting in CCOT right now, for the crime of being Venezuelan. I don't know what it is.
Well, he also committed the crime of being a gay man,
yeah,
and a makeup artist, and someone
yeah.
that you could target. And I guess I got a couple questions for you. You're very proud about your sexuality. You're a strong, smart gay man who is not just part of the community, but a leader in the community. But you're also very fair-minded. 15 years ago, you go to that walk and you feel liberated, and you love America. You spent a lot of time working in America at the very top of your game, being a producer for CBS. I'm very fortunate to work with you because you're such a fucking pro. I could care less what's your sexuality. I do not care. But if I put myself in your shoes, and I'd love to hear from you, We don't have these conversations very often. We're task driven here. But if I hear from you, as much as you loved the United States and you felt the freedom to be who you were in the United States and you were proud of the progressive values then of the United States, how do you feel now? Like how has that changed in your mind?
Well, the day after that march, I went back to work. I walked into CBS, and I was asked to go and see the standards and practices person at CBS News. And she's a nice person, nice enough person. She says, sit down, and she was like, "Well, we have video of you from yesterday." And I was like, "Okay." So I was at a march, exercising my civil rights as a person to do that. And they were like, "No, well, you can't have been there." And you basically are damaging your objectivity. And I was like, I don't think I'm damaging my objectivity on this particular topic. I mean, it's not like I can deny my sexuality. I am who I am. I told you who I was before I got here. Are you going to stop everybody from going to women's rights and for, everybody from going to any civil rights protests? We're citizens before we're journalists. I marched for Nelson Mandela in South Africa when I was 18. I felt that was my civic duty, even though I was a journalist. It was the right thing to do. I still believe I just don't believe in you can discriminate against LGBT people. I just think it's ridiculous. It's just part of humanity. And so I was fired not long after that from CBS for one of the reasons was attending, although they would never say it, was attending this march and that they had cameras basically looking for me as I was there doing that. So did I feel liberated in that moment? When I said the Lady Gaga moment, yes. Did I feel liberated the next day? No, but I still love America. I still thought, well, you know what? America's still a place that's changing. America's still a place that's progressive. They didn't love my coverage of gay marriage at all at CBS News. They took objection to me covering all that stuff. So I refused to follow their orders by telling them to, I'm an executive producer. You hired me to do a job. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to, you can't tell me what to put on the show, but it cost me my job,
Mm.
So, but I thought America was amazing for taking that step of legalizing gay marriage. And I thought it was a beautiful thing that they did, and still supported America. But you can't support America today. You can't support America under this regime with its, just not even very close to being effective government. I mean, it's just terrible government, terrible policy, terrible administration, but it's just outright racist and outright homophobic, and has no idea or care what it's doing to the rest of the world based on someone's like crazy fantasy ideas that the white people are somehow threatened in America. America, the global leader in the world, is threatened. How?
Well,
Who's threatened?
that's been the beautiful lie.
Yeah.
They've so eloquently been able to feed into people's mushy pea brains, specifically hillbillies and dumb people,
Yeah.
religious people, people who have hate that they wake up with in the morning and go to bed with at night because they're secretly living a double life, if you will. But that I will never not find that to be the most incredible psyop since the
Mm.
entire country of Germany lost their minds about 85 years
Yeah.
ago. It is one of the more, and it will be studied for generations, how the United States of America, all of its democratic trappings, in the spirit of freedom, decided that they needed a guy to come along and with his regime and cabal of unqualified, racist, religious sycophants, billionaires, would be able to convince a group of people, enough people, that you want us to destroy diversity, equity, inclusion, LGBTQ rights. You want us to go and hurt people who are from other countries. You want us to make the entire world afraid of being in this country,
Mhm.
because I'm not afraid of going to the United States. I'm afraid of going into the United States. I'm not afraid of being there.
Mhm.
But everybody that I talk to that has canceled a trip, whether they be gay or not, has done so because of the chilling effect, the butterfly effect of Donald Trump's strongman bullshit
Mhm.
that has turned America and the reputation of America into a flaming bag of shit, garbage shit. And you look at every reputation index of countries around the world, They all say the same thing, and this is really important if you're in the United States.
Mhm.
And I know there are beautiful Americans that are fighting against us, fighting for America's reputation on the world stage because it is toast. China ranks higher in terms of a positive reputation and an index of how do you feel about China? How do you feel about the United States? China's around 35, 38% of
Mhm.
people are like, yeah, I got no problem with China. The United States is around 22% as
Mhm.
I sit here today.
Mm.
So, like, and Russia's just below them at like 18, 19%. That has happened
Unbelievable.
in 4 fucking months, my friends. 4 months.
It's such an unspeakable tragedy, and I just shudder to think, and how those people were able to be convinced of that will be something we study for many years. But the fact that it continues, the fact that there, people still arresting students, the fact that people are still, running these policies is beyond me. We all know how terrible it is, and they go to work every day and they do this stuff every day, and they cannot do it. They can choose not to do it. If you're an ICE agent, you can choose not to do that in the day and go do something else, or you can have a moment of conscience where you're like, I'm not going to do that. You can be Marco Rubio and you can actually resign because the things that they're making you do are so appalling that you want to make a public statement and resign because you know better, because your parents were immigrants themselves and you know exactly what it feels like. And so, to me, it's just like it's just a failing of the population, but it's the failure of all these people who are upholding this administration. And it does matter at the end of the day. This administration is being held up by a
Mhm.
civil service that supports them. And this, not all of it, obviously, but there's obviously people inside it who are supporting them. And there is just a lot of Americans who still believe this, who have not been able to disconnect their brain from the bullshit that's being fed them. And what is coming as we get into the number 3 story here is really horrific. I mean, when you think about what might be next, as we look down the line at what Britain is doing right now, Keir Starmer, this is
Mhm.
again another great story from your Substack, is basically putting Britain now on a war readiness footing. He's saying by 2025 they'll be 10 times stronger than ever before, and be ready to take on a world war. Now, who's that world war going to be against? Who's it going to be? Is it Russia, or is it going to be Russia and the United States? Is it going to be Russia, China, and the United States? Who is that war going to be fought against? And that's what the terrifying prospect of those decisions in 2024, those election decisions. That's what could be bringing us down the line to, is a world war of that nature.
That was shocking to me today. Keir Starmer, about 7 hours ago, held a press conference and they were commissioning some new submarines that they were building and going to be co-opting and sharing with a couple of other NATO members. And so Starmer, his announcement today was fascinating to me because not only did he announce that England is declaring war readiness, meaning they're on a war footing right now, which, we talk national emergency, gives him extreme power to be able to bypass certain aspects of their constitution, like it does in Canada, like it does in the United States, so that they can get busy building and preparing. Canada also doing the same thing. Mark Carney meeting with his premiers today in Western Canada to give them what they need so he can build what he needs, which is a pipeline and an energy corridor and a military industrial complex with our new partners in England, in France, in Sweden, in Finland, in Ukraine as well. So not only was this announcement from Starmer very similar to the one that Mark Carney made the day the king gave his speech, where he's like, July 1st, we'll have new military partnerships. We're going full steam ahead. He's been a little more tongue in cheek about it. Starmer just flat out said it today.
Mhm.
And I quote, Britain will no longer be caught unprepared. We are entering a new era of military readiness. He's offering, this is what he said, this is what he's greenlit for his government. This is happening. Tenfold increase in UK combat capabilities by 2035, massive expansion of the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force, new cyber command doubling Britain's digital warfare capacity, domestic arms manufacturing surge, no more waiting on foreign supply chains, rapid deployment units stationed across the North Atlantic and Europe, permanent war readiness drills, including NATO, Europe, Commonwealth operations, and he's pushing everything towards NATO. Canada's pushing everything towards NATO. France, the EU pushing everything towards NATO. Stronger together. You're looking now at 700,000 EU and Canadian troops that
Mm,
are ready, can be ready to fight a war in a moment's notice, and that war is close to home for Canada because of the rhetoric south of the border. But that war is all about Vladimir Putin, who is indeed gearing up, ramping up in Belarus, ramping up at the Finnish border, ramping up in Poland, ramping up in and around the Romanian border. What you're seeing from Putin, that is this response. This is
mm,
also Canada's response. And because and by the way, we're not sharing. This is the other thing I didn't put in the article. We're not sharing intelligence with the United States anymore. We're
mm,
giving them bits and pieces, but the Five Eyes is really the Four Eyes. And so, not only did Trump not know about this announcement when it happened, not only did Trump not know about Operation Spiderweb because the free world cannot trust the United States of America. We're building around the United States of America. And we're doing that with partners who truly fucking matter. And for Keir Starmer to say, we're getting ready for war. We're now on a war readiness footing. And I will be throwing all of our resources into protecting the sovereignty of the United Kingdom, but I'm throwing our resources in there so that we can now lead the European Union and in Europe against Vladimir Putin and his terrorist state.
mm.
Fascinating, fascinating geopolitical day today.
It is.
Fascinating.
And just to put some more meat around the Carney story, which is story number 2 on the countdown today, is basically this is a response to
Great
Trump's
segue,
trade
by the
war.
way. Way to go. You're a
I'm
fucking pro.
trying, man, trying.
Really?
The Trump's trade war has now accelerated, of course. Now, recently, he announced that on June 4th, which is 2 days away, Canadian steel tariffs are going to be up from 25% to 50%. So Carney met with all the premiers of the province today in Saskatoon, and they really are moving quite quickly now to um, building or rerouting a lot of those steel assets that they have into infrastructure projects. So we asked each of the provincial leaders to give them 5 of the most important infrastructure projects. They're going to be fast tracked now in response to the Trump tariffs, which means they'll be able to keep the economy floating. Plus the energy corridor you mentioned earlier, that's going to do a very, it's going to be able to make a unified Canadian economy across all 13 provinces that can compete against America, or at least not be so done in by the tariffs as they're being implemented against Canadians. But it just shows you the kind of reaction that's going on around the world. People are
Yeah.
recoiling at everything America is doing. You've got Carney's response is smart and strategic and thoughtful as always. But the fact that he has to move this quickly in his first, what is a month still of being the prime minister, and he's
Not even.
not even, and he's got to be rebuilding the entire Canadian economy to
Yeah.
avoid these horrendous tariffs, 50% tariffs on steel. It's crazy to be doing that to your allied country without any knowledge, and yet Trump is away doing it.
Well, does it really matter? I mean, none of the tariffs have been really tariffs anyway.
Right.
All been threats to extort. That's what this is. And it doesn't matter if he's serious about the 50%. Doesn't matter if it actually happens. Doesn't matter if he keeps it at 25. Doesn't matter if he fucking drops it. And that's what I need Americans to understand. Listen, if you're an American watching the show, we've got hundreds of people watching live now, and I love all of you. What you all have to understand is that we're not recoiling from the United States of America. We can't do business with an idiot. And so we have permanently pivoted away when it comes to selling our natural resources to selling them to ourselves, creating jobs with those natural resources, in this case, steel, to your point. We're building a national energy corridor with pipelines, tidewater pipelines from coast to fucking coast. That takes a lot of steel. So we're going to buy that ourselves. We're going to employ more people. We're going to cut a swath across this country. We're going to rebuild shipping ports. What does that take? That takes a lot of steel and manpower. That takes a lot of people to do a really fucking hard job in a very short period of time. And to your point of moving fast, not only has the country of Canada, the federal government, fast-tracked all of these things. They've destroyed red tape with these exclusion zones, economic exclusion zones, where we're going to be plotting across this country to build our military, but we're also going to be creating an energy corridor so that we can extract what will be the end of MAGA, which is our natural resources. That's why Donald Trump wanted Canada as the 51st state. He wanted all our shit. Well, we just said we'll do it ourselves. And then we're going to empower each province. And I'll give you a really good example is that Canada is at a reflection point with a couple of different provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan. I'm from Alberta. I went to high school in Alberta. I went to university in Alberta. I grew up in Saskatchewan. So I'm a Western kid. The anti Ottawa, anti federal government sentiment out there has been alive and well forever. It just always has. Today, both of those provinces and their premiers, both of the morons, by the way, Danielle Smith and Scott Moe, Danielle in Alberta, Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, said they were really encouraged by what Mark Carney was saying, and they believed that they might, for the first time ever, get what they want, which are pipelines, which is the ability to sell their resources from coast to coast.
Mhm.
These are landlocked provinces. Potash in Saskatchewan's the number one industry. They supply potash for 90% of the world's fertilizer. That's what Saskatchewan does. Oil in Alberta. I've long since believed that Alberta needed a pipeline coast to coast, and hippies needed to relax about that because we need cheap gas, and we get cheap gas if we do this. Canada will be taking more money in your pocket. We're selling more. Canada's richer. Dividends are higher. And we'll sell to other people if we do this. We're no longer dependent on the United States of America. That is a rallying cry has been incredible to watch because every Canadian has gotten together and said, we can get behind that. Conservative, liberal, socialist, that didn't matter. We're all about us and empowering us as a country. And you're seeing Indigenous people, First Nations people buy into the plan as partners. We're not subjugating them. We're including them in the financial benefit. We're including them as partners because they're the first people of this land. And so Mark Carney's really playing 5D chess all the time. And he's not about the partisan bullshit. He's about how do we insulate ourselves and how do we make sure that this never, ever, ever fucking happens again. And this is exactly how you do it, sir.
The expression that comes to mind is there's necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yes, sir.
And it also ties into the number one story today, which is about Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb.
Oh,
Ukraine executed its most audacious military operation yet, launching over 100 AI-guided drones, still can't believe the story, hidden inside wooden sheds and smuggled 4,000 kilometers into Russian territory, where Operation Spiderweb destroyed or damaged 41 Russian strategic aircraft, including bombers and early warning planes across 5 air bases, representing about 1/3 of Russia's strategic bomber fleet and causing an estimated of $7 billion in damage, but also an incredible coup for their drone industry. And this is a country at war that was able to reinvent itself. And it now makes a lot of the weapons it needs internally, including drones. And to be able to use these $100,000 drones to destroy these billion-dollar weapons, it's such a David and Goliath story. It's quite a moment.
yeah. I love this story. It leaked yesterday, and I'm like, Ukraine will not be defeated. They just won't. They took, and by the way, those drones, a lot of them were less than $250.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and so they did $7 billion worth of damage with $50,000 worth of drones. 7 billion. They planned this for 18 months. Operation Spiderweb. What is it? Great question. I'll explain it as fast as humanly possible. 18 months ago, they cooked up this plan saying, we can't strike into the heart of Russia. We can't, a lot of our missiles don't go that far. They're still dealing with bureaucracy for all these scalp missiles from France and different missiles from different countries. They're re-engineering shit. So what do we do? They said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we fill 6 to 10 cargo containers with drones that are automated that have a payload on them, and we'll drive them into Russia in and around certain army bases because all we're trying to do is prevent our people from being fucking murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you combine that with the fact that the United States, through Donald Trump, has stopped aid going into that country. You combine that with the fact that they've been hamstrung by different countries going, yeah, just hold off on striking Russia. And they're like, hey, we're getting pounded here. So they said, fuck it. They didn't tell anybody. They didn't tell the United States. I believe they told Canada, and I believe Canada may have helped with some of the logistics. And what they did was they somehow figured out a way to hide in the ceiling of these cargo containers a false ceiling that housed all of these drones, like something you'd see in the fucking movies.
It's like a Bond
Housed
movie.
all
Yeah,
of these
it's
drones,
crazy.
and they drove them into Russia, left them in certain places for a week or 2 weeks,
Mm.
right? And then they contacted Russian cargo drivers that needed work. And they said, "Hey, we're from Russia. We got these things. We need them put here, 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 and here." And these guys are like, "No problem." And they paid them double the rate. So everybody's like, "Yeah, fuck, I'll make that money."
In
So they
Russia, they'll do
go,
anything for double the rate.
they hook up these cargo
Yeah.
things loaded with fucking drones and explosives, and they put them in front of 6 or 7 strategic air bases. 2 actually didn't make it there. The rest did. And to your point, 41 bombers, long range nuclear capable bombers, no longer work, blown to smithereens. 5 different air bases, 4 are decimated today. 112 drones did all of that damage in the matter of about an hour. And it took them 18 months to plan it. And here's the kicker. When it was over, these cargo trucks that had those drones detonated like fucking Mission Impossible. And there's a video circulating where one of them is smoking, like one of at the side of the road that didn't make it. One of them
Yeah.
smoking. And this Russian guy walks in and he opens up the door and the fucking thing just explodes. It's like, a kaboom. And I'm like,
It's
oh
unbelievable.
my God. Like, that's really Mission Impossible shit.
Yeah.
But it was one of the most tactically brilliant military moves in the history of modern warfare to
Mhm.
do that kind of damage, to reduce that army with that kind of capability to nothing. Like the 34% of their long range bombers no longer operational. Of the other 66%, something like 30% are in service and are also not operational. So they're down to like, 10 to 12 bombers,
Wow.
which, they were flying sorties over Ukraine with 15 to 20, 30 bombers a night for the past like 2 weeks, right? So just an incredible ingenuity, just brilliant. Zelensky's pimping it. I'm pimping it. His drone guy was like, "It's no big deal," and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's a pretty
Well,
fucking big deal."
it is a huge deal what's going on in warfare. I mean, these drones have revolutionized every aspect of warfare. If anyone thinks in the MAGA world that, America's aircraft carriers are going to be what wins any world war is not paying attention. I mean,
It's over.
those overpriced big things are not going to be what wins wars. What wins wars is your drone capacity. Now, every country's got good, drone developments. China's got some really interesting drone developments going on. But the United States has some interesting drone developments too. But it's not anything like the imbalance that existed between the countries before. So, yes, it's not going to be great that America is going to be on the side of Russia. America is going to be on the side of China in any war if MAGA still is in play. But it's not going to be devastating because warfare has changed so much, and the Ukrainians have shown us that when you have that sort of then when you're fighting for survival and you believe in something, like they believe in democracy, you'll do anything to survive, and you'll become so smart and so ingenious and work so much harder to be better than your enemy. Where on the other side, you see the demoralized Russian troops getting sent into the meat grinder on a day-to-day basis. America and the Ukrainians are fully engaged in being as smart and innovative as they possibly can in defeating the Russian army, and it shows. It shows.
I tell you what, it has been, when the Ukraine war started, in 3 days, we'll take Ukraine in 3 days. That's what Russia was saying, and watched them get bombed night after night. You watched Russia get repelled, with rocks and sticks and old ladies baking, rat poison cakes, but it has been for Canadians. And I talked to Alex de Rebekov, who I've had on the show. He's a Ukrainian guy. I've had him on many times, who charts things and does research and investigations for the International Criminal Court. It's just a brutal job. And I said to him the last time we talked, you really looked inside, right? Like as Ukrainians, you just said, what can we do? In the face of this, what can we do? We don't have the shit, but what do we have? And it was uplifting because they really set the tone, I think, for countries that are currently, and I say this with all due respect to the horrific genocide that's gone on in Ukraine, at the hands of Russian terrorists and Putin, who's just a despicable piece of shit. They've really sort of kind of shown the rest of the free world the way that you don't have to bow to a dictator. That you can use every resource at your disposal. And by the way, 85% of confirmed kills Ukraine against Russia have been by drones. So, stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Russia's out there lobbing bombs and howitzers and using old shitty equipment, donkeys now on the front line trying to, get gas to tanks that they can't, they're too far away from getting gas. And Ukraine just continues to lob these drones at people, and they're affixing like shotguns on top of drones now. They've got thermite drones. They're called dragon drones that drop like superheated fucking fiery chemicals on people that never have seen before, never done before.
Yes. Yeah.
And they now lead the free world in drone warfare, drone capability, drone advancements, where the rest of the free world is going, hey, can we learn from you guys?
Yeah.
And Canada just recently signed a deal with Ukraine to learn how to do what they're doing so that we can co-opt their kind of warfare. To your point, they've changed it all.
Mm-hmm.
There is no aircraft carrier in the fucking not the Red Sea. What's the sea? Black Sea. There are no fighter jets in the sky. What do they got? Like 30 of them?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Nothing
it's all
really.
drones.
Yeah.
It's all drones with fucking grenades on the end of coat hangers. It's just
And a great pilot
absolutely
program for
motivating.
those drones. I mean, they've got some great drone pilots and AI. That's the other piece of this that people are, AI has really been a boon to them because they've been able to power these drones with AI so they can make decisions about where to bomb and how to bomb on an ongoing basis.
Just a quick aside too, did you know that they actually are recruiting gamers from around the world for this?
It makes sense. So sure, it makes sense. So it was useful being a gamer. It's just for those people who are so disheartened by what's going on, it does tell you sort of the Chinese have the art of war, and one of the things they say is you can't win a war unless you have the moral authority to win a war. And the Ukrainians have the moral authority to win this war. They're on the right side of history. Americans know in their core that this government that they have in power right now, this regime, is on the wrong side of history, and that they need to bring America back to the right side of history. And that's how everything will be corrected. But, it tells you that even in the worst of circumstances, which Ukraine really was at the worst of circumstances, to be able to find the courage, the determination to fight on, and the innovation that they've shown to this incredible operation is so inspiring to everybody. It should be inspiring to everyone who believes in democracy, everyone who believes in human rights, everyone who believes in LGBTQ rights, everyone who believes in the freedom of speech and the right to vote and the right of free expression. This is exactly the kind of David and Goliath story that can inspire an entire world. And Zelensky and the Ukrainian people have shown us how to do that. So it's a point of inspiration for everybody, especially Americans who are fearful of the time they live in right now.
Yeah, great point. I mean, if you're going to take anything out of some of the dirge that we talked about today, it's that there's always hope. Ukraine was supposed to be wiped off the map in 3 days. It's now been 3 years. They have the upper hand. They just took out a third of fucking Russia's bombing force, 1/3 in an hour with drones that cost $250 a piece. Here in Canada, when it comes to the United States, we're looking inward as well, right? We're going to build. We're not going to worry about tariffs. We're not going to worry about retaliatory bullshit. We're not going to worry about, public pissing matches with the dumbest leader in the free world. We're just going to build an energy corridor and a new military. And we're going to take care of our citizens. We're going to open up interprovincial trade. We have accrued different partnerships, military and economic. So we look inward, and Ukraine looks inward. While Donald Trump projects this attitude that America's this and that, America has never been weaker because all they do is look outward, right? And it's the Stoic values that I live by. They kind of tell you that war story as well, right? You get busy controlling what you can control, and you don't worry about what other people are trying to control in your life. You just shut it out and you keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
That is the Ukrainian way. That is the Canadian way. And unfortunately, right now, it is not the American way. They're busy trying to convince everybody they're the big swinging dicks in the cracker factory. They have never been weaker. And all cruelty springs from weakness, all of it. So, what are they trying to hide? They're trying to hide that they're feckless. They're trying to hide that the Trump regime is full of morons and dotards. They're trying to hide the theft and the corruption. They're trying to hide all the Bitcoin scams. They're trying to hide all their Wall Street pump and dumps. That's what they're trying to hide. So this projection of toughness is the exact opposite. You know what toughness is? Ukraine. That's tough. That's heroic shit. America's not a hero state. Not anymore. It can be. It should be. And Americans have an opportunity to get their fucking country back, and I hope that they do. But until then, the rest of the free world just moves on, controlling what they can control, reimagining their society better for the people and better by the people, while America is is destroying themselves on a fucking daily basis. And so,
Mm.
God bless, countries that do that, because it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is why Rome fell. It is why every great empire fell, because you try to convince us, you try to convince the free world that you were a nine when you're really a three. And we know America's a three. And we know that the people of Ukraine are tens. And so here we go
I
again.
mean, I'm not as down on the Americans, as American people. I mean, I know the distinction you're making about the regime but it's just to bring it all around. Maybe that's beautifully said. Everything you just said was beautiful. So thank you. We started the show with a story about an 18-year-old, a high school student who's being arrested for being, I guess, not of American. I don't know, for not being American enough? Is that what he's been arrested for? On his way to volleyball practice? Guy who's going to be playing at school band the next day. And, the story starts there and it ends with Ukraine delivering this massive defeat to the forces that are rallying against democracy, to the autocratic forces in the world. And that is the story that I think we're going to be seeing playing out time and time again in the near future. It's the story of David and Goliath, of the people of America fighting the system, the people of the world fighting autocracy, fighting authoritarianism, and ultimately prevailing, because that's the only place that's going to happen. We've got the moral authority to do it, and hopefully we will.
We will. Zev and my beautiful American friends, thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us an hour of your day. Larry David once said it best, I think, and I want to bring my boy Larry David into this from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Love Larry David.
You can take my time. You can take my shit because I can get more shit. Just don't take my time, because I can't get any more of that. So when you give us your time and you subscribe to our work and you enjoy what we do, it makes us more grateful than we're just communicators. We're just here to kind of pass along the message, try to tell you the truth, try and sift through all the bullshit, try and tell you the unvarnished truth, but also give you a little bit of hope. So I would highly encourage everybody to go and subscribe to Zev's Substack, narrative.org. Please do so. He is tremendous at reading the tea leaves, specifically when it comes to crypto, when it comes to Elon Musk and the PayPal mafia. And he's hard on the human rights violations that are going on in the United States right now. I like to skate on the surface, but I give you the information that you need, whether it was a travel warning or a Britain rearming. So please go and subscribe. We do this work for you. You make it possible for us to be here. And I could not be more grateful to democracy-loving North Americans in the United States and here in Canada that have given us this opportunity to communicate with you, to be trusted by you, and highly, highly, highly recommend that you continue to trust the voices where you can prove out the receipts of what's coming out of their mouths and what's coming out of their accounts. Stop watching mainstream news. Stop listening to people like Fox News, unless it's Jessica Tarlov. She's incredible. And start listening to people who champion real values, real virtues, things that really matter. I say it all the time, the fruit of this life, the only fruit in this life is to be of good character and acts for the common good. So we will continue to do this together, and your support has made all this possible. So thank you, Zev, for your time today as well.
My pleasure. And thank you, Dean Blundell.substack.com. Have a good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.